afternoon, everyone. All those who haven't paid their income tax, can you please leave the room? It's a real pleasure and an honor, express pleasure and honor to welcome Ms. Sitharaman, the Finance Minister of India. A big round of applause. And in the normal course of events, the person welcoming would be presenting her with a bouquet, and she would accept the bouquet graciously and then forget about the bouquet and the person who's given her the bouquet. So we thought we'll do something different, which is, as the adage goes, we are what our teachers make us to be. So the organizers very graciously thought of something very wonderful. The bouquet to Ms. Sitharaman, the Finance Minister of India, would be presented to her by her teacher, Ms. Sabita. Can I please request Nancy? Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it's a real pleasure and an honor for me. And I think if one were to describe in one sentence the job of the Finance Minister, as the meme goes, you have one job. Her one job is to make India a success story. That's her one job. Now, is India a success story? There are various elements to this question, and I think I want to, in whatever 7 minutes and 30 seconds that I have, I want to delve into those before the floor is of Ms. Sitharaman. I think we are. If you were to look at some parameters, for example, when we gained independence in 1947, our life expectancy was 32 years. 32 years. Today it is 74 years. In 1947, our literacy rate was 12.5%. Today it is upwards of 86%. Our poverty rate was 71%. Today it is 4.5%. And the most troubling statistics was that in 1947, our infant mortality rate was 160, which meant that out of 1,000 babies born, 160 did not live to see 1 year. Today it is 24. So yes, we've made great progress. We are a success story. And if you were to scrunch the timeline from not 75 years, but to the last 10 years, I think we've been a stunning success story, largely in no small measure because of the achievements of Ms. Sitharaman. If you were to look at a few data points, for example, in 2014, the percentage of Indian population that was multi-dimensionally poor was 29%. Today it's 11%. In 2014, our GDP per capita was $1,500 US dollars. Today it's $2,500 US dollars. In 2014, our foreign exchange reserves were 300 billion. Today they are, I think yesterday, $678 billion. So on and so forth. We had metro in 5 cities. Now we have metro in 20 cities. We had 74 airports. We have 148 airports today. Um, 21,000 kilometers of railway lines were electrified. Today it's 63,000. The length of highways that we built in 60 years prior to 2014, we've built half of that length in the last 10 years. There's been tremendous progress. The AUMs and the mutual funds 10 years ago were 9 lakh crores. Today it's 63 lakh crores. In 2014, we had $7 billion of electronics exports. Today it's $23 billion. And most satisfying for the tech people out here, in 2014 we had 350 startups. Today we have 118,000 startups. So yeah, I mean, we've made stunning stuff there. And if you were to stretch that timeline even further, not to 75, not to 10, but to just 1 year, last 1 year, I think we've been a spectacular success story. In the last 1 year alone, our vehicle sales are the highest ever at 4.1 million units. Our monthly GST collections are the highest ever at 2.1 lakh crores. I think it was May. Our employment, number of jobs created, highest ever at 47 million jobs. We have the manufacturing PMI index, highest ever at 59.1. So many others. For example, something that, yes, is something to be proud of. Income tax returns are the highest ever at 68 million. Our central government debt to GDP ratio is at a 5-year low of 56%. Inflation is at a 5-year low of 3.5%. Our inequality is at a 5-year low of 0.4 Gini. And our Sensex is at an all-time high of 83,000. So yes, from success to stunning success to spectacular success. But then I ask, why is it that still 300 million Indians earn 60 rupees a day? Why is it that 150 million children are still out of school? Why is it that 34% of all under 5 Indian children are chronically malnourished and stunted? Why is it that 20% of all poor children have never been vaccinated? Why is it that 8 million Indian children serve as child labor? Why is it that 18 million Indians are in bonded labor? Why is it that 70% of India has not seen internet access? Why is it that only 2% of adult Indians pay tax? In UK it's 66%. Why is it that our GDP per capita is ranked 136th behind Sri Lanka and even Bangladesh? So yes, the glass is filling. The glass is half full or half empty, depends on how you look at it. But if there is one person who will make sure that this glass keeps on filling and fills to the brim, ladies and gentlemen, the onus is on Ms. Sitharaman. Ms. Sitharaman, please.
Thank you very much for Anand. So thank you very much, Pondy Lit Fest, for having me here. Well, if Anand could start on something like, if you've not had your income tax file, get out of this room. In the same vein, I'd like to tell him not to see me for the next 3-4 days, because it can be projected as, how dare you, Anand, come and apologize to me. That would be the projection, saying I called them to apologize. So Anand, stay away from me for a whole week. No, actually, I think it's the introduction is a very fair way of putting what we have probably together, people of India and the political leadership and the administrations in various states have achieved. But even so, there are so many fundamental things which still have to improve. There's no way in which you can look the other way when these data are spread before us. So, in a forum like this, and also from the Finance Ministry, It's very difficult to just talk on specifics and also to talk on what could be done immediately to address this, because it will have its own implication of, oh, the finance minister has committed on this, how much would she give? So I'm going to talk a bit on the larger issues and then probably address one or two of these concerns. We can never forget the fact that it is the efficiency of governance which delivers on fundamental ground realities. Whether it's malnutrition, whether it is the number of schools with quality teachers, whether it is measuring the outcome in schools, each grade for its learning outcomes and so on. It is a question of how governance is taken down to the last point. The difference between our government, and I'll take the name of the Honourable Prime Minister, the difference between a governance under an experienced Prime Minister as opposed to experience maybe, but let's say the dedication and the kind of commitment for the national cause being very different. The outcomes can also be different. So sometimes we say 45 years of one party rule but has not delivered, whereas 10 years of what Prime Minister Modi has delivered is so clearly before us and so on. The cutting edge difference is if the commitment is I have to deliver on every point rather than be at the top, lead from the front, but down below and on the specifics, each one does his own or her own, even with the intentions being good. So the difference in this approach is from the time a particular section has to be addressed or a particular scheme has to be launched, Prime Minister Modi's operational, which all of us have understood and we work with him on that, is from the time you conceive a project to the time it is completely taken to saturation point on the ground, he monitors it continuously. So it will look as if some people might comment, does he micromanage? It's very difficult to believe. But he does, because that is the stuff he's made of. And he thinks he needs to be clear that it is progressing towards the outcome that he had laid out at the beginning. There's no good announcing it, no good putting money there, but you have to see that it operationalizes. So when you're taking this approach, your outcomes can definitely be read out like the way Anand did. But if I were to do it, they'll say, okay, she's come here to boast about what she has achieved in the last couple of years, but I'm sorry, so that will not be accepted. I can quite understand that. But today what Anand has done is what many of the media and also many of the observers are doing if they have that thought, but if they have a different kind of an agenda, obviously they'll not speak about it. But it is necessary, therefore, to recall what India has achieved in the last few years, particularly in the last 10 years, only because this has been possible only with a government which has remained absolutely beyond corruption. Not an element of corruption in anything that we do. No pecuniary advantages, no policy distortions, no subjectivity anywhere. Any scheme, everybody gets it. Any scheme, transparent process. Any tendering of jobs, it's all through the global tendering process. It's out in the digital whatever. Whenever somebody bids, it's all known immediately. So there is no way there is a hidden, agenda of some people like to make their money, and therefore any number of calls or allegations that you only favor, let's say one A or the other A, I don't want to take names here, are all calls of frustration, calls coming out of frustration because you're just not able to say anything about this government, that it is corrupt in its, let's say, moral values, corrupt in its pecuniary interests, corrupt in its way of doing business. No. And therefore, they keep saying. That is why it is important when you collect all the achievement lists, when you provide houses, when you provide drinking water, when you provide medical insurance for up to 5 lakhs to individual in a family and within a year, to a family in a year. These are not benefits going to big businesses. These are after all reaching the common citizens. And when I bring in concessions or rates which are different in income tax, particularly in the new regime, and I make it a point to make sure that I give the standard deduction enhancement within 2 years of having brought the new regime. It is because we want to make sure that the benefit goes to the salaried middle class rather than to, I've given rate reduction, but it will benefit everybody till the high net worth individual, and therefore I've given for middle class, but I'm sorry, it also goes to the high net worth. That is the structure of the rates and the slabs in income tax. But if I have to particularly give something to the middle class, that's where I've increased the standard deduction. The rates are also changing, but that will be applicable for everyone who declares a personal income. So these kind of constantly looking and pairing out interests and sections for whom there is a requirement of having to extend some kind of assistance, we go that far and do it. So when we talk in great detail, it becomes like your communication is poor, yeah, you're talking too much technicalities. This is not the way to go about it. You have to say in simple terms, I've given you 1,000 crores for only distributing between, those at the age of 10 and those at the age of 25. No, we don't do that. And that is why this debate about freebies acquire a dimension, and we are most often told, even you are engaging in freebies. No, we are not engaging in freebies for two reasons. One, we understand the section for which we have to give it. Two, in the states where we are providing it, we clearly understand the state's financial situation, and we clearly say the scheme will be subject to the assembly and passing it through the budget. And therefore, the freebies are not fancy cuckoo land decisions which have no collaboration with the state's own policies. So that's going through the process, and states which have rushed into giving these kind of promises are today facing severe crisis. I don't need to name them. You're aware of states which promised returning to the old pensions. When you can't sustain it, and that is why today, with a committee of experts talking with stakeholders, we have come up with a unified pension scheme. So the reason why I have gone to giving you these examples is to say quite a lot of mind application happens at every stage. It is not left to just say one section of the administration. Everybody and also the stakeholders are brought in and decisions are taken like that. So therefore, where are we now? The list of achievements, which list of what has been achieved in the last 10 years and particularly in the last 1 year, particularly in the last 5 years, are all very briefly presented before you by Anand. But I want to say two things about what India is facing today and two things about where we are better off than many others today. We are better off because there is a sense of continuity. Like it or not, and all of us may, at least some of us may agree, could the number be better? Could the number have been better? But the fact remains it is Prime Minister Modi who has formed the government for the third time successively. So that brings in an element of continuity, stability in policy. And therefore, the priorities, which are make sure that India is safe, make sure the Indian fundamentals are strong, make sure you know the destination where you have to go, and therefore the path has to be laid out for all of us to benefit from it. And that is why, for a moment, I'd like to go back to talking about the global situation, the uncertainties, the rapid changes in regime. 50 countries have had their elections this year, or some going through now. Changes are happening rapidly, and in that process, uncertainty set in because the newer agenda of the new winning party is again going to reset the country's priorities, and in that sense, India has been fortunate. And therefore, the priority that Prime Minister Modi gives for national security, particularly because I borrow one of my friend's words, no nation can be secure in isolation. You cannot say I've built a very strong armed forces, it is well endowed, and therefore I'm going to be very safe. No. Today you need to have friends, you need to have such alliances, otherwise you're just going to not have enough helping hand if there is a contingency arising. You need to have situations where people stand up for your cause. For this, I'd like to just say how traditionally, even traditionally, non-aligned countries which led to a downsizing of their militaries, have today realized that they have to buck up, they have to have defenses, they have to have their economies being strong as much as money is for setting up their defense in a stronger way. So, in the early 2000s, and from then to now, you find a lot of reset happening. Countries are looking at their own national security. Even countries like Sweden, countries like Finland, yes, they're closer to some big country, but never mind, they felt safe all the while, but now they feel that they need to strengthen their defense, structures. And as a result, ideally, not a good thing, but as a result, global military expenditure grew 7% to 2.43 trillion US dollars in 2023. And that's the steepest annual rise which has happened since after 2009. So the sense of security, longing for peace, and overall security considerations now being very fragile, countries think they have to get back to being safer, well armed, positioned. Poland's military spending, 14th highest in the world now, was 31.6 billion after growing by 75% between 22 and 23. This is by far the largest annual increase in any European country. So countries are now spending money to keep themselves safer and well endowed from the point of view of development. So, if you're looking at what the future entails for India and how we are going to reach that destination of Vikasit Bharat by 2047, we are on the right track in that we've prioritized on our national security. We have never compromised on spending on defense, although the kind of whimsical 10 years which lasted earlier, where they didn't, at one point in time, didn't have money to spend on defense. Another point in time, they said, no, our border villages are better off without spending money on them, because if they're very good, the enemy can walk in easily. All those things happen. But we have never compromised it, whether it is a simple thing, but a very critical thing for an individual soldier, a bulletproof vest. Even that has been attended to, and to the extent of getting larger vectors, which are so required either for the Navy or for the Army and so on. So this sudden worry about global security and individual countries no longer wanting to be that ideally non-aligned. They may still continue to be non-aligned, but they want to be from a stronger position, from a bolder position, from a position of being sure that they are well armed for it. That is what is the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat announcements which were made in 2020 in the context of COVID. So I just want to underline the fact that we need to be conscious of the fact that when you're measuring a country's development today, I suppose as much as any other time, but there was a period of lull. We thought the world has arrived at a formula through which largely all of us are going to be safe, and there's no worry for us to think in terms of being very ready for defensive positions. So your measurement for being developed is not going to be devoid of your defense capabilities. Developed doesn't mean that I do everything right for our population, which is important. Everything right for getting education, getting health and so on, which is right, which we need to do, but we also have to be at least safeguarding our national interest, which includes security interests. So self-sufficiency, factors of vulnerability being addressed, and making sure that the external actors and their impact on us will be manageable. So with these things, we take position. We need to build institutional capabilities, which is look at the strength of our banks, which is look at the infrastructure that we have, whether in the border posts or within the hinterland, whether your companies and their health is good, whether they have good exit and entry policies, and above all, what has made a big difference to India, particularly in its economy, particularly in bringing all sections towards the mainstream of the economic activity, is digitizing our Indian economy. That's revolutionized what several governments over 50 years couldn't achieve, has been achieved because of the way we spread the digital infrastructure, and much without nudging, without having to empower people or to tell them that this will give you benefit. People have walked into this world of digital activity, and as a result you find the economy has got the strength from below, and little wheels are moving, making the giant wheel easy to move. So that achievement in the digital will also have to be strengthened. So you have to have institutional capabilities strengthened, and that's what is going to make the Indian economy be a lot more sure of how to move forward. Again, the question of inclusivity. It is not just a norm or an ideal or in a country with disparity that has to take precedence over self-sufficiency or Atmanirbharta. It is important for very many other reasons as well, but it is important for every country. So you need to strengthen financial inclusion. You have to get more people on board so that they can benefit by the banking services and also see where they can acquire that little credit to run their businesses. Then you need to have targeted welfare delivery. I want to here take a little sensational position, and I'm sure many in this audience would question me saying, why do you want to say this? Because I've heard voices coming which are slightly different, saying, why is it that you still have to feed 80 crore people by taxing the middle class? I want to humbly submit. But reducing the burden of taxation is one thing which I will have to address, and I concede more can be done. I will try to make it more. But you can never compare it saying, I'm paying taxes, it is only for this 80 crore to get free food. Sorry, I differ slightly. Pardon me for that. Yes, you can question about efficiency in delivery. Yes, you can question, is it 80 crore or is it less or is it more? All worthy questions we need to have to address, and that's where hopefully when the census happens, we've heard the Home Minister say that sooner it will commence. We'll get the actual data and we'll be able to do it. But till then, for us to think there is some other idea with which 80 crore is being kept up, I think we need to sit back for a moment, pause, and then talk about it. I've just taken this opportunity to bring that element in, but targeted welfare delivery, whether it is for medical, whether it is for health, whether it is for food, whether it is for children's education, whether it is for overall well-being of the family, we need to do targeted welfare delivery. And digitization, as I said, and economy needs to have more and more formalization. What sounded a bit of a sweet music in years when Anand said the number of people who are paying tax, it can be better.